Welcome back to the Keeping Current podcast from ERS and HVM, designed to plug you into the world of electrical power systems. I'm your host, Nick Palko, and I'm excited to be joining as a co-host this season. Today, we're diving into a topic that's evolved over the years in the industry, how general contractors and electrical contractors work together, and how the relationship has changed over time. Because if you've been around jobs long enough, you know this isn't the same dynamic that it was 10 to 15 years ago. So get ready to unplug and connect. Joining me today, Brian Campbell, Director of Field Operations. Brian, look at you, your fancy title now, who works for McPhee Electric. Brian and I worked together for a number of years. Brian's been in the field for as long as I can remember. Brian, what do you got, 25 years now? Is that what it is?
Yeah, I got 25 years in the local, and 20 plus of those years have been here at McPhee.
And you and I started this conversation, what was it, Wednesday night or Tuesday night, whatever night you and I were talking, where we were talking about the different dynamics of, back in the day, it used to be a GC was a GC, the electrical contractor, which we were both electrical contractors together. We would get contracted on a job, and, that was the relationship. You did your job, and you never really had a say in what was going on. It's kind of interesting now because, Brian, you're still at McPhee. I work for high voltage maintenance, and now we kind of work together like we always did back in the day.
No, always maintained a good relationship.
Always. When you think back, the traditional setups like 10, 15 years ago to now, do you think it's better now, or do you like it the way it was back in the day?
Two sides of this. Back in the day, when you just had the GCs running the job, they set up the schedule, they bought all the equipment, they maintained the schedule, they were the project managers on it, and really you just provided your manpower and took care of the job. As long as the schedule is being maintained and you're hitting your target dates, there's no problems. They released the money as you transition through the project, and everything was fine. Then you fast forward years later, the GC is stepping back more, and you have more hands-on electrician, hands-on with the electrical contractor in the projects, where they're asking you to help with the design. You're procuring equipment, you're designing it, you're managing the project, you're working with 3D BIM modeling with the other contractors involved, and the GCs have stepped back more, where it's more just they'll have an on-site, maybe one person from the project on-site monitoring it, and it's a lot more involved now with the electricians than it used to be. And which in turn, now you need a lot more people. 20 years ago, working at a pharmaceutical company, you had your foreman on the job, general foreman, and your workforce. Now you fast forward to 2026, you'll have a whole trailer full of project engineers, project managers, site superintendents, then your general foreman and crew to get the job done. I think now years later, you have a lot more overhead that you need to account for, and essentially the same profit to work with.
Do you feel like it's funny, prior to being at HVM, I was a manufacturer's project manager, and it was very, very different because the pressure is more schedule based now more than ever. And with lead times being as crazy as they are, the way I've always looked at it, it's kind of like the minute you give them dates or expected release times on gear, it's like that's the number that's concreted in stone, and there's really no wiggle room. You guys are like, I was dying. I was just talking to one of my buddies who's another manufacturer rep about an SF6 breaker. SF6 breakers have like a 4-year or 3 or 4 year lead time now. One of the questions I asked was, well, how long is that how long is building the actual breaker? And one of my buddies was like, Nick, it's like a 2-week build time for these breakers. And I was like, what takes 3 years? But I also think that's partially backlog, and it's also partially manufacturers are kind of giving themselves cushions now to get things done because there's so much being,
ever since COVID, when COVID happened and the equipment delays, switchgear panels, switchboards, panel boards, cable, fiber, everything, when that happened, the lead times went crazy. And then I think after that, you got into where the data center market was just exploding. You have large customers with deep pockets that are taking up all this material and equipment. And I don't think that I don't know if you're ever going to get back to where it was pre-COVID with, inventory of equipment at these manufacturers.
Yeah, well, and it's funny you say that because I had that exact same conversation with the director of, but I laughed. We had that exact same conversation because the electrical contractor that asked us, he was like, so think about it, a panel board. You used to be able to get a panel board turned around in what, 2 to 4 weeks, easy, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, we were waiting on panel boards for years, and and I mean like bigger industrial outdoor rated panels, not like your simple 42 cert, 12208 panel. Like, and we always said it. We were at like, I don't think it'll ever go back. I don't think it'll ever go back to being the way it was, only because now there's too much wiggle built into it, is the way I'll say it. You know what I mean? So it's just kind of interesting. And COVID definitely changed everything. And I think COVID changed not only the manufacturing side of things, but it also changed just the whole dynamic of the whole construction. Like, it turned the construction world on its head, essentially. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't
I
think
mean,
it'll
we had
back
guys.
either.
Think about it, Brian. We had guys were 30-year electricians that, I know guys that left or took early retirements. Why? Because they were almost going to be sitting on the bench. You know what I mean? So just
Yeah.
because of that, during COVID, there was no work. So it's just great. It's just a different age, and when you and I first started working together, think about it, how saturated the market was, and then now as we get older, because Brian, how old are you? I'm 44. I'll be
I'm
45 this year.
49.
You're 5 years older than I am. Like when we were in our 20s and 30s, a lot of the guys we worked with were all OGs. You know what I mean? They were just old school
Yeah.
electricians, and like the Eric Weisses of the world, and those type of people who you and I worked with. And I worked with Eric, every day. So you learn certain things, but now a lot of those guys are either retired or they've moved on to other job functions with the utilities or stuff like that. So it's just different. The talent, I think it's a talent pool. I think the talent pool is very, very different than it was, say, 15 years ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah, agreed. I think the talent pool is different, and I think that the amount of jobs going on now in different regions of the country have changed also, to where predominantly before you were from say in the Northeast, from New Jersey north into the New England area was where the concentration of your work was. Now a lot of the data center work, other manufacturers, pharmaceuticals, they have moved south, to where before you would have some of that southern workforce working with you in the Northeast. Those people aren't available anymore because it's busier in their regions and they're working in their own territories. So I think the workforce has definitely changed, where a lot of your talent now it's spread thin.
Yeah, 100%.
Whereas
Yep. No.
before it's concentrated and now it's spread out.
Yeah, like I think you and I were just talking the other night, how where now even some of the electrical contractors that were predominantly working in the Northeast, where, are now working in the South, where back in the day, it used to be the opposite. Some of the guys in the South would move to the Northeast, and, you know what I mean? And they're just going with customers. It's clients. It's crazy.
Yeah, we've even had some work that was two parts, where the pre-built portion of some GIS, we were working on it in New Jersey. And then the other half of the job was, all right, now you're going to go to Virginia and install it.
Yeah. No.
So yeah,
No.
it's definitely changed, and the market's definitely expanded.
Now, do you feel like you guys have more say with the utility more than ever, or are they kind of like, I used to get a set of drawings, right? And it'd be a new construction project. And I would go to my old boss, who was the engineering manager. I'd go, hey, we could do this, this, and this, which is on the print, but there's a better mousetrap for that. And I mean, that was 10, 15 years ago. And a lot of times it was most utility drawings were up for interpretation, is the way I used to say it, especially with the utility, because they're like, well, if you guys are the, like, back in those days, Mike used to be like, Nick, you know this stuff better than I do, and you know our systems better than I do. So, whatever you think could change and be better, they always used to go with our recommendations. Are you still seeing that, Brad?
We're seeing that depending on the customer.
Yeah.
You'll see it more, maybe say on a national grid level, where it's more of a partnership. You're both inputting ideas and coming to the best resolution to make the project go better, smoother. In New Jersey, really not so much. The utility is sticking to their design, their install. Of course, if you come across something where what they designed isn't going to work, you can give some input on it. You can put in your RFI.
Yeah.
And if they're having trouble coming to a conclusion on what is going to work best, they're going to ask for your opinion. But it's still varying by customer of how much input they're actually looking for from you.
Now, are you seeing a lot of interaction with engineering firms too? Like, I know there were a couple design firms that up in the Northeast they used to use where you'd have a spec that was written, and then basically that engineering firm was always pulled in because there was always like a shift in, like, well, we don't want to own this. And I know the utilities that are in your area in New Jersey are very, very old school, and they're very, very, this is what we want. This is what we're going to give, this is what you're going to give me. Where I feel like further north in New England, it was a little different, only because I don't know if it was just turnover or if it was just they didn't. In some instances now, I don't know if it was just they just didn't know, or they didn't. You know what I mean? It's just very regional. It's one thing I've learned is regionally, it's very, very different from, like, say, New Jersey. Like when you and I were working in New Jersey, that utility was always just telling us, hey, this is what you're going to do, and there was no gray area. Where up north in Connecticut, Massachusetts, it was very different. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say it's so about the same.
Cool.
Same between the two regions.
All right, Brian, I'm going to try to just do a quick little wrap up. I appreciate you coming on today. I just want to say thank you to you. That's a wrap for today's episode of Keeping Current. If you found today's conversation insightful, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and tune in every other Thursday for expert insights. You can also connect with us on LinkedIn to stay in the loop and join the conversation. Thanks for listening. Until next time, keep current.